What do you think about the month of October? Because that month used to be a very lucky month for one Sean Diddy Combs. His #1 album, Press Play, it dropped in October of 2006. His cable TV network, Revolt TV, that launched in October of 2013. And Chicago's mayor once declared Diddy Day in October. And that was to honor the rap mogul's charity work. And we now know that this October will be momentous as well. Maybe even Diddy's luckiest day. At a hearing today in federal court in Manhattan, 6 days after Diddy's acquittal on RICO and sex trafficking, the judge in his case set sentencing for Diddy's 2 prostitution-related convictions for, ready? Yep, October 3rd. How about that? October 3rd. By which date he will have spent 1 year and 17 days behind bars. And every day of his involuntary stay is going to count towards the final number of months or years of his sentence. As for that sentence, that has been, how do I call it, maybe the biggest parlor game in town. What's the judge going to do? Is he going to throw the book at him? Is he going to let him off easy? At the top end, Diddy could get 10 years on each count. So 2 terms of 10, and they could run one after the other. So you do the math. What does that mean? It means 20 years total. But the prosecutors are going a little conservative, and they're asking for at least 4 to 5 years in prison. For their part, Team Diddy is asking for 2 years, which, with the time that he's already served, would mean a little less than 1 year left in the federal lockup. As you know, the reason that he's in a prison before a conviction is that he's been locked up without bail at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, known far and wide for its awfulness. But apparently it's a lot less awful for Sean Combs than it used to be, because his lead attorney says after last week's verdict, when Diddy was transported back to the lockup, his fellow inmates gave him a standing ovation, saying, quote, "We never see anyone beat the government," which Diddy did not do entirely, right? And to that end, I want you to check out this picture of the actual verdict sheet that was filled out by the foreman on his jury. Big check mark next to the words "not guilty" on the biggest charges, racketeering and sex trafficking. But guilty on counts 3 and 5, transportation to engage in prostitution, which is AKA the Mann Act. Wouldn't you have just loved to be a fly on the wall as those jurors slogged through 7 weeks of this trial together? Well, tonight you're in luck, because juror number 330 got the summons and showed up for jury duty months ago, only to be picked among 17 other fellow citizens to sit in judgment of Diddy, to sit on the jury that would hear his case. His name is George, first name only tonight, and he sat in that courtroom every single day of Diddy's trial, which means he sat through 7 weeks of testimony, 34 witnesses, and clip after clip of freak-off videos. In the end, 12 of his colleagues on that panel of 18 were chosen and sent off to deliberate Diddy's fate, but George has come to talk to us tonight. George, welcome to the show. Boy, oh boy, have I ever wanted to talk to you. I'm really thankful that you're doing this. And first, can I just say thank you for your service?
No, thank you. Thank you, Ashleigh. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know, everybody thinks jury duty, how do I get out of it? But you're an example of a shining fellow American who didn't do that, and you did your civic duty. And I know you're smiling, but I'm really pious about this stuff. I think it's really important. So with that all said, did you agree with the verdict?
I did. I did agree with the verdict. You know, through the whole thing, I took a lot of notes. I think about 350 pages worth of notes, about 3 steno pads worth of notes. I wasn't actually the one that took the most notes. There was others that actually took more notes than I did. I think 4 steno pads. But I think if I was able to, given the chance to deliberate and review all my notes, review all the evidence, everything I needed to see, and also, most importantly, review the judge's charges, I would have eventually reached the same conclusion that the other the 12 jurors found.
And of course, there you were. The 12 went off into the room, and you didn't get to be the fly on the wall in the room. But did you all have the same sense? I know you weren't allowed to talk about the facts of the case, but you were with these people for, what, 7 weeks straight? Did you all get the sense that everybody felt the same way all the way along, or was it poker face, you couldn't tell?
You know, it was, I think, in a sense, we were just all hoping, we were just kind of waiting for it to end, you know? Every day, I think it was just because there was so much evidence and so much testimony, and it was like, as you said, it was 7 weeks of witness after witness after witness after witness. So I think we were hoping for it to come all together. We were really waiting for the judge to give us his instructions to know, you know, what the definitions are, what we're actually looking to do. So I think we had an open mind this entire time, and we were just, it really was like a show, and you know, we were just, you know, the audience and just waiting to hear everything, whatever both sides present to us, and then make the ruling.
With that, I want to go sort of granular down to each of these charges, because when you listen to the prosecution's closing argument, she said to you, you can agree to have a lot of sex, and then if you don't agree just one time, that's sex trafficking. And I felt like there was evidence where both Jane and Cassie said, I don't want to do this. And there was pressure. There was either force, fraud, or coercion. Did you not agree? Did you think that the women were not telling the truth?
No. From the beginning, you could tell that. I mean, especially like Cassie, you know, when she came in, she was, you know, very visibly pregnant. I mean, she was extremely pregnant. So and even when Jane came, I think both of them were very credible. But as you listen to their testimony, and both of them, their testimony went for days. I think as you listen to them, some parts of their story at times, you know, seemed like certain parts didn't really. There were a little bit holes, especially when under cross-examination. You know, it raised a little bit levels of doubt, especially in my mind, on certain things.
So I get that. I definitely get that. It raises certain levels of doubt because I love free coughs, right? There's that text message. I love to free cough with you. But do you believe, George, and do you think your fellow jurors believed that Cassie, and let's just put Jane aside, that Cassie, at least one time, did not want to be a part of that? Say, for instance, after the escort testified that he could hear what sounded like Diddy beating her in the next room, and then they came back in and he said, finish strong. Did you believe that maybe that was an instance where Cassie truly did not want to finish, but she was coerced into finishing that free cough?
You know, when looking at everything, and then because the defense, when they were showing, you know, the counter arguments, they would always show, you know, the after effects of some of the, especially the text messages. And in those instances, there was also a lot of saying thank you sometimes, or, you know, I had a great time. So those kind of instances, they really did, I think, raise a little bit of doubt. And then just to know that these freak-offs were, you know, done in with free will.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think many of them seemed to be, according to the evidence, she was into it. She was organizing and saying thank you and all the rest. But that one freak off, that's why I get down to the granular. The one freak off where the escort said, I could hear her being, what sounded like her being beaten. She came out and Diddy said, finish strong. And is it possible, again, in a reasonable, not beyond all measure of doubt, just a reasonable doubt, is it possible that Cassie did finish that freak off under coercion because she had just been smacked around in the room next door?
No, it very well could be. But I think when you look at everything together, there was some doubt that the jury had to convict to say that those two counts were not guilty.
And maybe, I don't know if you agree with this, George, maybe there was too much information. Maybe the prosecution just handed you way too much to be able to kind of sort through it all, again, on that granular level. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I mean, there was a lot of information, I have to say. I mean, every day when I would leave the court, it was just like, you really didn't know like where to even like begin. A lot of times I would just walk home from the court all the way up to Grand Central, just to kind of clear my mind of all the things, because it's just, you know, it's just a lot of information. There's a lot of exhibits that they kept presenting. So and every day was just, I always just came with an open mind, and I really didn't have my mind made up in either way, really until the end, until we were really waiting until the judge gave his 62-page instructions on what we need to do. And that's, I think, what I was waiting for, was just, why are,
that's
what
a
are we
long
here
walk,
for?
by the way.
It is.
That's like
but
almost
every
an
day
hour,
I try
if
to
I
do
do my math
12,000
right.
steps. So.
That's a lot. That's a long walk. I have one last question. I'm going to make it brief because I'm running out of time, but I am so curious, because as I watched all of this testimony and the witnesses every single day, I felt like I saw evidence of bribery, kidnapping, extortion, assault, corroborated by several witnesses, testimony and messages. And those were all the predicate acts in order to find RICO, the racketeering. And yet the jury found no racketeering. Why do you think that is?
I think, racketeering, and I mean, from what I understood, it's a very, I mean, all the charges are very high bar charges. But when you look at the different counts, I think the defense raised some doubt in each one of them, especially, kidnapping, arson, forced labor, all of those different charges, because you had to find them in two. I think there was always a little bit of doubt. The prosecution did an excellent job. I have the highest regards for all the prosecutors. I was very impressed with them. But the defense did poke some holes in the witnesses' arguments on some of those charges.
They did their job.
They did their job. They did what they were paid for.
They poked a lot of holes, George.
Yes.
They got you to reasonable doubt. They got your colleagues to reasonable doubt. One last quick question. I knew that I said that was my last question, but I do have this one. Can I ask you this? Yeah. What do you think of Sean Combs as a man?
Well, any man who does domestic violence isn't much of a man, in my opinion. It's anyone that beats a woman, hurts a woman, is not a good person. And that was from the beginning. They had even the defense admitted that Sean Diddy Combs is he's a very flawed individual. So, I'm glad that, and the evidence was overwhelming that, he's found guilty on these two charges. So I'm glad that, he is going to, face justice.
Serve some time. Yeah.
So I'm happy for that.
George,
and I hope he gets the max, whatever he can get.
Were you about to say you hope he gets the max?
I said I hope, it's the judge's discretion for whatever, however the sentence, but I hope, and I know the judge has been fair this whole time, so I hope, it's the maximum whatever is possible.
That's interesting. I want to thank you again for your civic duty and all those days and weeks and the mental anguish of going through it. It's a tough job, but I'll bet if you're like most people I ask, I bet it was very, very rewarding. And I think you get a break from jury duty for a long time, George. Thank you for doing this tonight.
Thank you again. Thank you for having me on.
So appreciated.